Okay.
Hi everyone, how are you guys doing tonight? Awesome. Thank you so much for coming out to our second night of Spirits with Spriits. We hope to keep you guys entertained for the first hour. We're going to be doing a little bit of a podcast here with Giving Up the Ghost. And then we're going to be opening it up to open mic and reading some stories that were submitted to us. And just, trying to get you guys involved with everything that we're doing. There's also going to be a chance for questions. So if you have any questions for us, what we do, how to get in contact with us or anything like that, we'll be around for questions all night, all right?
And I'm Jazz, and this is Giving Up the Ghost podcast. Thank you. Woo. I wanted to give special mention because last month when we did this, we didn't have Chelsea with us, and Chelsea is the proprietor and brainstorming. Anyway, she's the one who had the whole idea for the Spirits with Spriits, aka having a ghost story night. So give it up for Chelsea. Woo! Ravens End Books. It's a marvelous place on Portage. Here, I'll let you.
So, thank you. Yes, I'm glad they were on board with this idea, but also apparently incapable of checking a calendar. We talked about this date for 4 months. Finally settled on it, and then it turned out that I had a commitment that I had for 8 months. So, if ever you are interested in anything at Ravens End, because we have lots of classes, just trust that you'll need to remind me about calendars. And otherwise, I'm probably going to be sitting, we have a table set up over there with a lot of newer horror books that we have, including a very cool thing we just got today, which is a Choose Your Own Adventure horror book, a collection of 10, so you could go to Grandma's house, Carnival, everything like that, and they're just $17, so they're amazing. And I've been told by the publisher we're the only place in Canada to carry them. So
awesome. All right, so I'm Ashley, and this is Kelly. We're from Winnipeg Paranormal Group. We also have a couple of our other investigators in the crowd. You guys want to wave your hands? Woo! All right, should we get this started?
Sure. All right. I might as well speak because I like talking. No, I don't really like talking, just we've had the podcast. So in case you're not familiar with my partner, Cher couldn't be here tonight. Her son is graduating, but again, my name is Jazz. It's Giving Up the Ghost podcast. We are Winnipeg's first and only paranormal podcast. We've been doing this for 5.5 years. We're downloaded in 43 countries, and as well, give or take every now and then, we've been number one a couple of times, but we're on feedspot.com's top 10 Canadian paranormal podcasts. So we're like Winnipeg's little hidden gem. There's no money in podcasting, by the way. So, and we do have merchandise at the side as well. So do the Winnipeg Paranormal Group. We have t-shirts from our podcast, and they have merch as well. So, in saying that, thanks for coming out. This is our second night. Last month was really amazing. Hopefully, the weather gods will be smiling kindly upon us. Please. Last month we discussed it. We talked about haunted highways in Manitoba, which was really cool and pretty creepy. This round we were trying to get stories from you, the public, on renovations. Anybody ever hear of houses and locations becoming haunted after renovations take place? Does anybody know of that? Yeah. So it's almost like the spirits are sleeping, and then you wake them up, right? You could be probably living in like a haunted house or a really, really old location that's dormant, and then you start messing up with Auntie Jean's wall of, that nice paisley wallpaper. She don't like that. She's going to come out and, knock on walls and shit like that. So haunted renovations is a thing. And we've accumulated some stories that we're going to talk about tonight about the haunted renovations, as well when we requested or asked if anybody had those stories. At the same time, people were just very giving and telling us of their own haunted house stories. So we have some of those to share with you tonight. So we're just going to take turns and read. Oh, and I obtained these from Facebook. Facebook is a wonderful, dangerous place. Not for the faint of heart. Especially in those neighborhood groups, right? From Brenda S. We were living in our house for quite a while when we decided to paint the kitchen. Instead of being a nice light color of green, it looked like a neon marker. Well, immediately things started happening. Light bulbs in the kitchen burning out daily, my coffee cup going from kitchen to my office, my cigarette moving from my office to the kitchen, etc. It was crazy. So I sat down and I addressed the gentleman who had built and lived in this house. I said to him, we are changing the colors of the walls and that's it. And if we were ever doing anything in this did not like, to show us a sign and we'll change it back. And she said that was 15 years ago when she threw that ultimatum down with her spirit, and nothing's happened since. Another one here from the Facebook page from the St. James Westwood Crestview Headingley community from Joe K. She says, I have a few. She says, number one, in my present home when we first moved in, I would hear talking on the main floor of our home, and when I was upstairs I would hear more talking. It reminded me of when you're like in an apartment and you could hear the neighbors talking next door. But whenever I went downstairs, there was nothing. So she's basically saying they have a single dwelling and they don't have a neighbor. But whenever I went downstairs, there was nothing. Happened over and over until our main floor renovation was complete. I don't hear it as often now, but it still happens. I usually think the kids are in the living room watching TV, but nothing when I come downstairs. The second thing, in my last home, I had an attached spirit who lived there. He made himself very well known to me, and his name was Stan. I didn't know his name when we moved in, but I found out later. I was also told that the previous owner had passed away in the home. I was okay with that, but when I first moved in, I started to work on the bathroom. When I would go to bed at night, I could hear the kitchen doors slam shut like rapid fire, like all in a row. Open, close, open, close, open, close. It would scare the shit out of me. I would go check it out and nothing. Some nights I would hear the door slamming and then hear heavy footsteps coming down the hall and stop at the foot of my bed. I would cower under my sheets and yell that it was my house now, not his. And then one day I was talking aloud to him and I told him that I was okay with him being there, but I didn't like it when he was scaring me. So I told him he could stay downstairs in his work area as it was really nice, and I figured he would spend a lot of time down there when he was alive, or that he did spend a lot of time down there when he was alive. The slamming cupboard stopped, but I could hear a bang on my HVAC every night under my room. So I would say goodnight to him every night. And one night I went to bed and woke up and I knew his name, and I don't know how I knew it, I just knew it, and it was Stan. I started to talk to him by his name and all was good. I have many stories of Stan in the house while I was renovating. He was always around but never bothered me or scared me anymore. My last story of him is when we were getting ready to sell the house. We were replacing the old fence with a new fence, and we were cutting down the old chain link fence and putting up a wood fence. I went to go take down a metal pole and I stopped. My fiance asked why I stopped. I looked at him and said, "Death is in that corner. I can't go there." So he just looked at me like I had three heads and went and cut down the post. We ended up talking to our neighbors later that day, and they told me that the previous resident had passed away in that corner of the yard years earlier, and his name was Stan. Ooh, scary stuff. Scary stuff. I'm going to get Ashley to read the next page and some. On there?
All right. All right, so this story is from Chantel N. And she says, I rent and have a habit of finding myself in haunted places. The last 5 houses I lived in were haunted, so to speak. In BC, a house where the entity slammed all the cupboards closed that I'd left open and yelled, "Get out." We kept the basement door closed and locked after that. The next house, dogs always running around upstairs. I don't have dogs. Third, crying adult, just quiet weeping every night for a few hours. Oh,
that's sad.
Last house was an older woman. She was concerned that smoking weed was going to make me sick. Weird, right? So I went to the hospital and had all my testing done. Came back with a clean bill of health and the doctor telling me that I should keep doing what I'm doing. So she stopped giving me trouble, and she didn't like the clutter though. I called it organized chaos. She wasn't impressed. Current place, old grandma's phone, music playing sometimes. I don't have one. Something threw a plate out the other day. Random black flies appear out of thin air in the basement right in front of us. Like record-setting size black flies. It reminds me of one of the investigations we did in Michigan.
That's freaky. It also reminds me of, what was that? Amityville, right? The flies that appear out of nowhere? Yeah. You can keep going.
Okay.
Keep going if you want, sure. You can even tell the location, too.
So this one is from Skip I in Petersfield, Manitoba. He says, we are unable to start restorations due to contractor's illness and school children's voices. After research, a school that was at the end of our street by the lake.
I wonder, like, what I'm thinking from that is he's meaning that maybe the contractor's just constantly sick after maybe started and just, I don't know, something going on there. Brandon, you know Petersfield, right? Yeah. Yeah, some were from Facebook and some were actually from Reddit. Sorry, yeah.
Upper Cantaloupe. Can you guys hear me okay?
That's the name of the user.
But my aunt and uncle had some weird stuff happen when they built a new house in the country many years ago. Drawers and cupboards being open without being to figure out who did it and that sort of thing. I love the way these people write. I figure some person was buried on that lot and didn't care for them building on it. I'm generally not really interested in paranormal stuff.
But you responded.
But.
It's always a but.
There's always. They were both well-educated, intelligent, and not mentally ill people, and they swore up and down that this was happening. I have no reason not to believe them. That's funny. Okay, this one's another Reddit from Northern Lights. When we moved into our house last year, we could definitely feel something. Not bad, just like something was around. The previous owners did a lot of stupid renovations and paint, so we fixed it all right away. Sort of taking the house back to its basics and removing all the Pinterest renos that did not match the house. Both my husband and I have had dreams of a man around 50 wearing a white collared shirt with the sleeves rolled up and black pants walking around the house.
The sirens always interrupt you last time,
they
too.
do. I know. It's like they know.
I know.
But it's kind of wild that they were both dreaming of the same person.
Yeah.
Okay. At first, he was walking around checking everything out and then went to our kitchen and sat at our table. He comes around every couple of months and always seems relaxed.
And there it goes.
There we go.
Okay. Got that out of the way.
Last time I saw him, he was sitting on our front steps. When we did our inspection, house was built in 1960s. The inspector let us know whoever built the house put a lot of effort into it. All I can think is that the ghost is happy and relaxed, and I assume it's the original owner. All right, here's another one. I am the Jaha.
That's the name of the user.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My neighbors back in the day did a bathroom renovation. They found a glass jar in the floor with what looked to be ashes in it.
Oh, don't remove it.
No, don't remove it.
Please don't remove it.
Just leave it there. Pretend you never saw it.
Well, you know they're going to
Go
move
about
it.
your
They
way.
always move it. Stop moving it.
The alternative is leaving someone's ashes that you don't know in your house.
But it was fine there. It was fine.
Long story short, we, my dad and my neighbor, later found out the previous owner of the house was a mental health doctor that married one of his patients.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Oh my God.
The wife committed suicide a number of years later, presumably in the bathroom. Anyways, yep, dude found a glass jar of ashes in his bathroom floor and proceeded to have 4 different religious cleansings take place over a month once renos were done. I shouldn't have enthusiastically told the neighbor that moved in, the poor man and her 5 kids. Oops.
Oops.
Oh no.
Wow. That was a good one.
Yeah, FYI, if you guys ever do renovations and you find things like in the walls or under the front stairs, like a lot of people would put horseshoes under the front stairs, don't remove it.
Another
Baby
thing,
shoes.
don't marry your therapist.
That's
Don't
another
marry your
good choice.
therapist.
Yes.
That's right. Exactly. Maybe he had her locked in the bathroom. Sorry, I had to add that. That's what I get from that.
At all, right? This one, Jeepers 19. My cousin renovated a house near the Henderson side of the Redwood Bridge. This was in the 90s. Removed 2 upstairs walls. Then they reported sounds of footsteps and chains frequently. Candles would light up. Candles light up.
Ooh.
The family cats, dogs, and bird all became agitated at nothing constantly. They sold the house not too long after.
But I'm done.
We had a client who did that.
Yeah.
Greg, we've done extensive renos to a house originally built in 1914. Sometimes I feel like there is an unhappy presence around afterwards. I've apologized and explained, and sometimes I just can't help but have that feeling of angry eyes in our place.
Interesting. So when we were, me and Cheryl, or maybe it was you ladies with me at the Lower Fort Garry, we were there collecting stories at Halloween time when they did their Halloween walk. Do you guys remember the one older lady that came and talked? And she was a museum curator, and she was saying that she had bought a house in Wolseley, and the house in Wolseley, like, she started renovating it, and at that point, I guess, things started happening. She'd hear footsteps, and I guess whoever was in the house, spirit-wise, didn't really approve of having the house renovated. But what she kept trying to tell the spirit, she kept trying to reinforce the spirit, I'm just trying to bring it back to its original state, because I guess whoever had it between the spirit, the person passing, and her, made a mockery of it, right? Like, probably like real tacky wallpaper and all that. So she kept reassuring the spirit that she was just trying to bring it back to its original, like 1914 state in Wolseley, like the nice wood banisters and all that good stuff. And I remember her telling us that after she was making progress with the house, all the little disruptions, like all the knocking and all the footsteps, that would stop. Like it was agitated footsteps. I can't remember. If you want to listen to our podcast, you can go back and find that episode from last fall. But in any event, she said that after a while, she found that the spirit was calming down and was approving of her renovations, because at night, going to sleep, she would actually hear piano music coming from the living room. So, wow. I mean, there's good and bad, right? Like, I mean... Yeah. Anyway, so I thought that was a really cool story. From what I remember, we got a lot of stories. So that's really it for the renovation part of it. But we do have haunted house stories. Anybody live in a haunted house? Has anybody lived in a haunted house? Has anybody ever been in a haunted house? Sweet. Okay. All the above. And if at any point anybody wants to come up on the second half and tell their stories with us, have some liquid courage. Find yourself over here. Oh, and as well, we are going to draw for a t-shirt. So when we break in between our shtick and the next segment, please come up, fill out a ballot for a free t-shirt of your choice for tonight. Okay? So anyway, I'll continue on. We'll just discuss some haunted... Oh, actually, Kelly, did you want to tell the story that you had about Captain Kennedy House?
Oh, sure.
Do you guys know Captain Kennedy House on River Road by Lockport? It's pretty old and haunted AF. So Kelly had provided the story, so I'll let her do the honors and read the story.
Okay, this is from a former group member. Because years ago when Winnipeg Paranormal Group was first formed, they went in there, because that's when it was still open. Because
they don't have it open anymore, do they?
They're starting to.
Are they starting to have
Yes.
Just regular tours, not the cool, the cool tours.
They had to clean stuff out because they had asbestos or mold.
Black mold.
Like a reno
so
thing.
They didn't want anybody going in there.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
So the tours that they're going to have coming up, it's going to be, for the regular people. It's going to be like the nice, they used to do teas there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're hoping that maybe at some point these ladies can go in and do their
It's
thing.
really well known to be
Very.
haunted.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the facts as I can best recall. The story takes place many years ago at the Captain Kennedy House in Lockport, Manitoba. This historical home is located on the banks of the Red River and dates back to the mid-1800s. Over the years, the building has been expanded and remodeled. However, the original stone foundations are still there, holding up the modern additions. The Winnipeg Paranormal Group was invited to investigate this site as many staff members had reported what could only be described as haunted activity. Lights turning on their own, objects disappearing and reappearing in different locations, and the sound of footsteps coming from the upper floors when no one was present. The basement with mud floors was especially heavy with negative energy. Used for storage, it was rarely visited and then never by anyone alone. Stories of the past horrors of colonial abuse on the Indigenous population also followed the reputation of this house and remained a stain on its history. When the paranormal group investigated, there was a thunderstorm that night, and the barometer pressure was very heavy. Using the tools of the trade, amazing footage was captured as Mario, one of the team members, was able to interact with an entity on the 100-year-old staircase. Using the electromagnetic detector, he was able to get yes or no answers to his questions with a simple 2 flash of the lights for yes and 1 flash for no. It was like this that Mario was able to ascertain that he was speaking with a small boy who had passed in the house due to an illness. The entity was itself afraid of the basement and warned the group not to enter. After this amazing exchange, 3 members of the group did not heed the warning and did venture into the depths of the stone cellar. This was not one room, but a collection of chambers of varying sizes and heights. Wood planks on the floor allowed for feet to remain off the muddy floors in what could only be described as a labyrinth created with decades of expansions and modifications to the original foundations. The team explored the passages but found themselves uncomfortable, too far from the staircase, and so remained there while filming the next part of the investigation. Using the EMF detector, once again, they requested answers from whatever entity might be present. No answer was given. Frustrated by the lack of response, one of the investigators raised his voice and challenged the entity to show them it was even capable of manifesting. Immediately following this challenge, a gust of wind was felt by all 3 members, and all the devices they carried blew up with activity. The temperature lowered significantly, and something in the darkest corner of one of the rooms fell with a crash. All 3 team members agreed that they had gotten their answer and their welcome was no longer being tolerated. All 3 sped up the stairs. Why would they speed up the stairs? To rejoin the rest of the team upstairs. Alex, being the last one to exit the basement, felt a chill following him up the stairs and swears there were footsteps behind him until the last step. The evidence gathered that night by the Winnipeg Paranormal Group is some of the spectacular footage of sentient entities interacting with the living. To this day, the Captain Kennedy House is still known by all who work there or happen to visit as very much a haunted house. Okay, we would never run out of that.
No.
Well, I was going to say, I had to have my cheeky response to that. The whole sped up thing, you know, like when you're like with like people and you're like the last one. I'd hate to be the last one, you know.
Well, that was Alex. He definitely. I remember him. He's told me the story a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And he said that it was so loud, like the bangs.
Yeah.
It scared the shit out of him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
He said it was pretty crazy in there.
For sure. So these ladies do home investigations as well as public investigations. What would probably be, since we're on talking about you guys and all, what is probably one of your more favorite investigations that you've done?
Ooh, more favorite?
Yeah. Well, I know Ashley, when Ashley used to live in a haunted house, and that was pretty wild.
Yes.
But I mean, like, as far as like a public investigation, what would be probably most memorable?
Well, for public, it would be Seven Oaks.
Yeah, definitely Seven Oaks
Yeah,
House.
Seven Oaks is
Yeah.
full of activity.
Yeah.
And we spent so much time there that the energies that were there, I think, just got familiar with us. And,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of like we say, like the spirits are going to be easier to interact with in your own home, right? Because they know you, they're familiar with you. So that's kind of how we felt things got to that point.
It's the spirits.
Things got to that point at the Seven Oaks house with us. So
And that's how most paranormal groups are. When they go into a home, they
Yeah.
usually don't go in just once. It's not like the movies,
Right.
where they show
Yeah.
them just going in one time.
Because you guys spend hours when
Most
you're on
times.
site, right? Like
Yeah,
you
they're
spend a lot
going
of time.
day after day after day.
Yeah,
Like
collecting.
one of the movies from The Conjuring, like one of the Conjuring movies,
Mm-hmm.
like those people who actually, the one in Britain, they were there like almost every day for like a year.
Yeah, they
Wow.
moved in
Yeah,
at one point.
yeah. They were
That's
there a
crazy.
lot.
So
Wow, that's dedication for sure. And I know I've been on investigation with these ladies. We went to the bed and breakfast in Eli. That was pretty cool. We didn't see or find anything, but I remember the K2 meters were going crazy.
Yeah.
And when me and Cher, we were reading the history of the bed and breakfast there, because it used to be a former was it
Nunnery.
convent, nunnery, right? And
Yeah.
the history there, you know, I mean, I'm not a religious person by any means, but like the nuns loved their bishops, right? Like the nuns like just worshipped all the priests and the bishops, like they were like just gods, you know, and I'm not exaggerating. So when me and Cher were reading the history of this particular nunnery, and we would start talking about like specific bishop names and everything, the K2 meters were going like
oh, they were going crazy.
they were going off the chart. It was just like these girls were so questioning it, like what's going on, and then these girls are like, maybe it's too close to the cell phones, maybe it's too close to the laptops, because they're good, like they rule out, you know, any possibilities. Like just like me and Cher, we call ourselves optimistic skeptics. Like, you know, you want to believe, but I mean, you want to rule out everything. And these girls are running on the other side of the wall. There must be some electronic device. Like that is how crazy these devices were going off. But it was only when we were reading the history and we were actually talking about priest names specifically and bishop names, because the nuns, you know, they have that, you know, that dedication. And we struck a chord. So, I mean, truly, when you have the kind of equipment that these ladies have to do investigations, it's amazing the results. And if you're a non-believer, when you go out with these ladies and you see some of the things that they've captured, you believe. But I'm a believer, so I mean, you know, I'll believe anything they tell me.
With that, I'm going to put a little plug in. If anybody is interested in coming out on an investigation with us, we do actually have a public investigation coming up on July 19th at the St. James Museum. So you can go on our Facebook page to find the link to the event, or just go straight to Eventbrite to buy the tickets. But
That
come out
place is
and
a little creepy.
investigate.
Yeah, that place is a little creepy too. I felt stuff upstairs, and then I was told later that that was the nursery. So probably a lot of babies died
And there's a
upstairs.
jail.
And the jail.
Yeah, the jail
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah, you know, it was kind of funny. What was the device you guys had, or where does the voice, like
The ghost box?
the ghost box, right? So it was so funny. Me and Kelly are standing. There was quite a few of us, and me and Kelly are standing there, and twice the girl said, cut hair," and we're like, well, I was gonna cut my bangs that day, and Kelly made some other smart ass remark. You know, we're a bad influence on them. I'm always making smart ass remarks. And later, do we not go upstairs? And it's partly a museum upstairs, and we find there's like an old 50s hairdresser set upstairs. So, you know, there is something, you know, like, I mean, you can make as many connections and correlations as you want, but there is something, you know, that basically spirits is a science that humans have not discovered yet. And that's all I'll say about that. Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions for the Winnipeg Paranormal Group? Any questions? Anything? Anybody?
I can't see
Anyone?
any hands on the
Hands
top floor there.
upstairs?
Anybody upstairs have any questions?
Hi, upstairs. Hello, upstairs. Oh, yes, sir.
Have you ever investigated Hotel Fort Garry?
We have, yes.
We have, yeah.
Um,
Quite a bit of activity, but it's
How
not.
about the chef? Have you heard about a chef in there?
A chef.
I've heard about the Phantom Diner, but there's definitely something in that
On the
area.
10th floor, there's a massage place.
Yep, 10 spa.
10 spa?
That spa, and I bought my niece a gift card there a year ago, and I asked her if there was any ghost sightings, and she said just a week before I was there that the chef ghost appeared in the steam room to two men,
Wow.
Oh, really?
and
Cool.
they got a little freaked out with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely activity all
Yeah.
over that hotel. Like, people always focus on that one room, but then if
It's
you
all
talk
over.
to other people, there's
Yeah.
a lot of different sightings throughout that hotel.
Like I went there before
Thanks
we did the
for
podcast.
sharing.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's very cool. Write that down. Write that down. Document that.
Yeah.
Like I went there about 10 years ago with a friend, and like it wasn't way before we did this podcast and the ghost thing. I've always been interested in spirits and ghosts and the afterlife and all that kind of stuff. And I experienced so much stuff at the Fort Garry Hotel in one evening. Like, that's the one thing. If you know, people say, well, I've been there, I didn't feel anything, but you were probably there for like 20 minutes. I'm not saying Fort Garry Hotel, but any place that's reportedly known to be haunted, you know, like if you're just there for like a minute amount of period, you're not necessarily going to feel or experience anything if you're open to that kind of stuff. Like, not everybody will experience stuff because not everybody is either open or chosen. I don't know, but in saying that, like, I truly feel to have any kind of experiences personally, you have to be in an atmosphere for like an evening or hours, just like when these girls do their investigations. And when I went on a tour at the Fort Garry Hotel, I saw some pretty freaky shit. Felt stuff, and I've been touched. So I mean, yeah, like I mean, the Fort Garry Hotel, it's just not room 202 like they say the ghost bride, you know, like the bride that took her own life. Like, I'm sure that did happen. We did do extensive research for newspapers, couldn't find anything, but which is odd because if you think about it, the sensationalism back in those days, the newspapers, they would record everything. Like, they were ambulance chasers, right? They would even tell you the house that the person died in. They would tell you, like, they would give addresses. Like, there was no discretion back in those days. So it's kind of funny that we couldn't really find anything on the bride that took her life at the Fort Garry Hotel. I'm not saying it did or didn't happen, but, you know, maybe it was a really good cover-up too, because, like, it was a poshy hotel, right? Like, God forbid that information got out to the public at that point, right? So anyway, so that's just me rambling, and that's what we do on the podcast, except we swear a little bit more. And I'm probably about 3 drinks behind as I would normally be by this point. But yeah, so ghost investigations are really, really cool. The St. James Museum is very, very, how do I say? Active.
Interesting.
Yes. Interesting. You guys did the Seven Oaks.
Seven Oaks House. We've done Ross House Museum.
Well, the firefighters.
Dalnavert.
Yeah.
The Fire Museum.
The first year me and Cher had the podcast, we actually recorded at Dalnavert during doors open, and we were on the veranda, and we actually did record a couple voices like in the recording for that day. So there is stuff there too at the Dalnavert.